There are three main parts of the responsibility deal: core commitments, collective and individual pledges, and supporting pledges. Those, when adopted by companies, means that they have signed up to the responsibility deal. But much criticism has already been levelled at the document because of its lack of bite. As a whole, we need to focus today on what those food pledges are and the things that are going to affect our businesses and our consumers. So, the first one, pledge one, out-of-home calorie labelling. From the 1st of September, if you sign up to that pledge, you will provide calorie information for food and drink out of home. Terribly easy to say, isn't it? But depending on the business that you are in, the operations that you have, that is a very long road to get to the point where you can do that across your menu of food products. Pledge 2, to commit to a salt reduction target. So we're committing to a target, as long as everybody understands. A 15% reduction on the salt targets in 2010 for the end of 2012. That is less difficult to achieve. There are still many, many ways that salt can be taken out of the diet. And then artificial trans fat removal. Again, if you sign up, you will remove trans fats from your foods by the end of 2011. Again, that is possible to achieve, but you have to do an awful lot of work to get to that point. All three of these pledges are there to support the stated aims of promoting healthier behaviours, making choices easier, and strengthening individuals' responsibilities. So, in the beginning, how did it all come about? Well, we're all getting fatter. I can say that with absolute confidence. Whereas, I think within the UK, we are now classified as the most unhealthy people in Europe, which is not something to be very proud of. Last year, 1.5 million prescriptions were written for diet medicine, dietary pills. That's nearly twofold on where it was 2 years before that. We are faced with a much more unhealthy population, increasing medical bills, and a drive from the government to save money wherever possible. And I don't think any of us in this room disagree with the intent behind this, which is to solve and tackle the root cause of the problem. But the problem doesn't mean you. You're not the problem, as the consumer must take some responsibility for the food they eat, the alcohol they consume, or the cigarettes that they smoke. So is this just another example of the government intervening in habits and behaviours of the general public? Well, if you look at those three pledges again that affect us, and then just tell me this isn't common sense. It's not about restriction and choice, it's about information. It doesn't mean that people can't. It just means they can make their own minds up and decide, should they, when it comes to purchasing food and drink. Self-regulation. The document called for it, and to date, many more than 170 companies have actually signed up to this in the hope that the government will not legislate. It is fair to say that it's been broadly accepted, but many, many companies still haven't made a move. I'm not here today to talk about those companies that have and those that haven't, because, as I say, you can read about that in the press. We have a very real threat if we don't get on board on this. And that threat is that, at the moment, the US Food and Drugs Administration are going through legislation for America, for the US. The US consumer is further down the slippery slope, if you want to call it that, than we are in the UK. And everybody is watching what's happening there very carefully to see what the response from government will be. That legislation is going to deal with units of companies with more than 20 units, and it is going to be extremely challenging for them if They don't understand what is going to be needed because they're going to be given a 6-month compliance period when it comes into place in 2012. Andrew Lansley has also got involved with the food manufacturers as well, and many of the food service companies, to help write government policy. And many people have looked at that and said, is that the government getting too close to industry? But in my view, it cannot happen if this is going to be a pledge and a sign-up without listening to what the industry is wanting. Can you imagine what it will be like if government decides how we are going to control calorific information? We've all seen some rather unusual piece of legislation over the years, and I hope that we won't see any relating to this particular subject. What that alliance will do is at least remove a number of the misunderstandings that occur between the food service industry and government. Will it replace state intervention with private and corporate action? I don't know, and I don't think anybody in this room does either, because we still do not have a measure of how the government is going to react. Tim Lang, Professor Tim Lang, has actually gone on record as saying that he thinks that the responsibility deal is a bad idea, as soft nudges don't work with big business. So, for all of us, there has to be a pretty compelling commercial reason why we would want to adopt this. It's actually really very simple. Operators put the calorific information on their menus. Have you been to a harvester before? It's quite a usual expression when you walk in there. But you will see on a harvester menu now that every single dish has got, this is a very small version of it, because there is no PowerPoint today, which is fantastic. Every single dish has got the calorific count against it. But what that tells you when you look at it, very simply, is if I choose ribs over chicken, both of which are done on the char grill, ribs will give me 4 times as many calories as the chicken will, and they both have the same sauce. Does that frighten anybody? Because I didn't know that, and I will merrily go in there and buy that product, but I was not aware. And I think the information that operators can give the consumer clearly and quickly when they're looking at a menu, and it's a tiny 2 or 3 words. It doesn't take over the whole menu. It becomes hugely valuable for that consumer if they want to read it. If they don't, then fine. But they have the opportunity to understand the relative merits and demerits of dishes within that particular menu. Clapham House went on record as saying that they thought it was approximately £100 a dish to do the calorific intake. If you're a cook from scratch operator, I think that becomes even more challenging because your menu is changing more often, it could be changing daily, you have an awful lot more work to do just to get that information up there. One size fits all is not an expression that comes to mind here. It lends itself to chain operators and operators who have a supply base and a production base and a specification base that doesn't change very often. But what I would say as well is, as operators, you need to start thinking about this not being a separate strand of activity, but that you build it into your new product development. You build it in to everything else that you're doing, so that when you put your new dishes together, you also work out what the calorific content is as well at the same time. That will help you adjust those dishes accordingly. It's easy. We have to comply. I would suggest that if you can do this, you do it. There's strong evidence that consumers want the information, and the spectrum of government legislating in the way they are in the US means that there's a really good reason to do it, and do it now. Demonstrate your commitment, talk about it, publicise it, and make sure your consumer knows about it. over-deliver if you can, maybe with helpful hints, menu suggestions and combinations of offers that provide low-calorie options. It's not about withdrawing options from them, it's about informing and educating, allowing them to make decisions based on strong data. You and I both know the consumer will go out for steak and chips, they will go out for a burger, they will go out for a pizza, or whatever other food choice they want from their favourite restaurant or fast food offer. They will make decisions based on flavour, price, content, dish size, but I also think they're going to start making decisions on calorie information as well. But I fear that those with poor, and I'm going to call them calorific credentials, those with poor calorific credentials will increasingly be the target of press and consumer groups, especially as the information is readily more available. And a number of them have now gone out and said, actually, we are going to be so much better. We are going to be transparent about what we do. And that's very good to see. Calorific credentials are going to be as important as provenance and sourcing, in my view, in the next 5 years. I really do think we can be too negative about this. And I do believe that the PR mileage on it is going to be very good indeed. There are those that have already embraced that opportunity, and they talk very much about how they care for their consumer. It's Sue and Pret being two companies to mention. And I think as we move forward with it, the opportunity is large. But is it a commercial opportunity? It is impossible at the moment to gauge whether this will have a positive benefit on turnover for any business. Will I stop buying my iced coffee? Almost certainly. Will I stop buying coffee? I very much doubt it. What I think we will see is a switching of product across menu ranges as people understand more and more about what they are eating. If we do nothing, we will end up with government telling us what to do, and it won't be two tiny words against each menu item on the menu. It will be significantly worse than that. It will be one size fits all, because with the greatest respect to government, I don't believe they fully understand our industry. And lots of the bodies and representations from the hospitality industry have worked very, very hard to ensure that people understand it, and they are only now just scratching the surface. It sounds like doom and gloom, but let's not forget that eating out is a joy, a mixture of human emotion and biological need. It's a social occasion as well as a meal occasion. Let's try and retain as well the spirit of eating out in one way or another, leading to what I'd like to call controlled indulgence, informed consumption. So on the face of it, we've got a lot to do. It's not a massive money-making opportunity. There is a lot of money that you have to spend as operators, as providers, as manufacturers to find out what the calorific counts are and to deliver that information to your consumer, to find out how much salt there is and to reduce it, to remove artificial trans fats from your menu. But you know all of that. In the face of what you have been dealing with in the last 2.5 years, it is also a huge ask, with product prices going up and the recession biting very firmly. But whether government legislates or not, it will only be as a result of the lack of action by the hospitality industry. I don't see a reason why you shouldn't do this. So the question has got to be, why not? After all, the customer is always right. Thank you very much.